This is Under Review, the show that talks about Colorado sports with a sprinkling of national sports stories as well. I'm Jordan Long. We're going to start with the Colorado Avalanche. Now, they did a great job in free agency keeping their own free agents. Now, I talked about their moves in episodes 25 and 24 of Under Review. And if you want to go back to see what I have to say about their moves, go back and listen to those broadcasts as I talk about how they're going to be Cup favorites next year with their moves they made. There's one more key free agent that the Avalanche would like to keep, Nazem Kadri, who was their second line center and a very important piece for the Avalanche success this past year. Now, Kadri saw time on the power play as well as 5-on-5 situations. And 71 regular season games for the Avalanche, Kadri scored 28 goals and added 59 assists, a total of 87 points, the most in his career. So he did well in a contract year. On the power play for the Avalanche, he totaled 8 goals and 21 assists. In the postseason, he had some big goals. He even had a hat trick in the second round against the St. Louis Blues. Kadri also scored the overtime winner against the Tampa Bay Lightning in Game 4 of the Stanley Cup Final that gave the Avalanche a 3-1 series lead. The Avalanche would like to keep Nazem Kadri, and it looked like he was on his way out. He is now a free agent still, and is still waiting for a team to sign him. Now, I really thought the first wave of NHL free agency, Kadri would have been signed already, but he is still a free agent. It was the numbers he put up that I figured, hey, teams will want him, but nope, he's still a free agent. Now, the Avalanche would like to keep him, but if you know anything about the NHL, they have a hard salary cap. Now, how much they have left is $3.9 million about, and Kadri wants probably $6 to $7 million a year. So what could the Avs do to keep Nazem Kadri and actually sign him to a contract? Well, it's easy if you ask me. Trade defenseman Sam Girard. Don't get me wrong, Sam Girard was productive in the regular season for the Avalanche with 5 goals and 23 assists. He missed most of the postseason with a broken sternum, which occurred in the second round against the St. Louis Blues. Girard is a great defenseman who can check players off the puck and can score, but the problem is they already have defensemen that can do that. On their blue line, Cale Makar, who is better, Devon Toews, who is probably better as well, Josh Manson, which is probably equal, veteran Eric Johnson, and young star Bowen Byram. Basically, what I'm saying is the Avalanche's blue line is stacked. It seems like Girard is the odd man out. Now, by trading Girard, that would save the Avalanche $5 million in cap space, more than enough to sign Kadri if they trade Sam Girard. Just say the Avalanche don't do this and Sam Girard stays and they couldn't find a trade partner. Kadri goes to another team. The Avalanche would still need a second line center. What could they do? Look at free agency and who is left. Unfortunately, depth there is an issue. There's not a lot left in free agency. If they don't like their options in free agency, find someone on the current roster to be the second line center. Now, Mikko Rantanen played on the second line. He can be on the first line as well. But if you look at third line centers, who could be on the second line? That's Darren Helm and JT Compher. So those are third line guys in Darren Helm and JT Compher who can be the second line center. In the playoffs, they tried Compher and Darren Helm to center the second line, even though they are third line guys. Now, the Avalanche, what they can do, especially with head coach Jared Bednar, he can play around with his lines in preseason as well as regular season games in the 2022-2023 season to find a second line center to replace Nazem Kadri if Kadri doesn't come back. For Kadri, though, it's still wait and see what he wants to do. The Avalanche want him back in Avs sweater, and they will do what they can to bring him back. We're going to move on to the NBA and the Utah Jazz, who have already had a busy offseason. First, they hired Will Hardy to take over for Quinn Snyder after Quinn Snyder decided to resign at the end of the season. They traded center and maybe the league's best defender, Rudy Gobert, to Minnesota on July 6th. You can actually Google search to see what Minnesota actually gave up for Rudy Gobert and what Utah got. Now, it looked like the Jazz were done in terms of trades. Well, they may not be done wheeling and dealing because they may trade star shooting guard Donovan Mitchell. The reported places that he could be traded to are the New York Knicks, who are the leading candidate, Miami Heat, Toronto Raptors, and Brooklyn Nets. I will talk about all these landing spots. The Knicks signed Jalen Brunson in the offseason. Not bad, but if the Knicks want to be a better team, go on and trade for Donovan Mitchell. Their shooting guard is Evan Fournier. Let's face it, Fournier is not the player Donovan Mitchell is. He's a great player, but not a superstar. I saw that in Denver. Now, Evan Fournier scored 14.1 points per game and added 2.1 assists per game this past season. Compare that to Donovan Mitchell, and Mitchell is better. Mitchell put up 25.9 points and 5.3 assists per game. Mitchell makes the Knicks better. New York missed the postseason this past year with a 37-45 record. With Mitchell, though, it won't make the Knicks a championship team, but a playoff team. That is all you want, is to be in the playoffs and have a chance to do something special. Now let's say the Knicks don't want to trade for Mitchell. The Miami Heat could look at acquiring him, Toronto and Brooklyn as well. I will explain why Miami doesn't make sense, but Toronto and Brooklyn could make a little sense. Toronto finished at 48-34, fifth in the Eastern Conference. They were beaten in the first round by the Philadelphia 76ers. Now the Raptors have a pretty good team, but you could tell in that series against Philadelphia, they needed another shooter. That is where Donovan Mitchell would help this team. We know Mitchell's ability to pass the basketball to his teammates, and that actually would help the Toronto Raptors. Plus, Mitchell can make a shot anywhere on the basketball court. That would take pressure off of Scotty Barnes and Pascal Siakam on offense. Barnes and Siakam would just need to worry about getting rebounds and putting them back in. So offensive-wise, they don't have to worry about it, and Mitchell would look for them down low. It would improve the Raptors to be a top 4 seed in the East. As for the Brooklyn Nets, I can't figure out what they want to do this offseason. There are rumors that Kyrie Irving is going to be traded. Kevin Durant isn't happy there. So would entertaining a trade for Mitchell, that is, would entertaining a trade for Donovan Mitchell make sense for Brooklyn? Sure, it would give them another superstar if Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving leave. That is all it would do. Mitchell is used to being a superstar, but you need players around him to help him out. That is, players around Donovan Mitchell. And if you get rid of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, Brooklyn really doesn't have that. It just doesn't seem like a likely landing spot, that is Brooklyn, if all other superstars are going to leave. Sure, it makes sense if Irving and Durant stays. Why? Well, if you keep one of them, or even both, Mitchell takes pressure off of Durant and Kyrie Irving. His play should get them open looks, but that's only if they stay. The place that makes little sense is the Miami Heat. Now, the Heat went 59-29, the best record in the Eastern Conference. Unfortunately, they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Boston Celtics in 7 games. Why would the Heat want to trade for Donovan Mitchell? It doesn't make sense for him to land in South Beach and play for the Miami Heat. They already have close to a championship team, and we saw that last year. In this upcoming season, which is the 2022-2023 season, Miami, is going to be back as a top 3 seed in the East. They might be even the number 1 seed. They have a talented team with Kyle Lowry, Jimmy Butler, Duncan Robinson, and Bam Adebayo. Plus, on the bench is one of the best 6-man in the NBA who can start for any team, and Tyler Hero. The fact is, the Heat already have a roster that is built to win now. Why would you want to trade for Donovan Mitchell? Why risk it? For the Jazz, they will actually take their time to see what they want to do with Donovan Mitchell. Let's just say the Jazz do end up trading Donovan Mitchell. It signals to me that the Jazz are rebuilding. First, they already traded one of their stars in Rudy Gobert. By trading Mitchell, it says they're going to try and rebuild the team yet again. Sure, you can get draft picks for him, but that is not a superstar. The Jazz have made the playoffs 6 years in a row. It would take them time to actually go back to the playoffs if you trade Donovan Mitchell. They are most likely a lottery team in the Western Conference without Donovan Mitchell. From that standpoint, it doesn't make sense. Now, the tricky part about a trade in the NBA is you have to match salary. The salary for Donovan Mitchell this upcoming year is around $30.35 million. So basically what I think is going to happen if they want to trade Donovan Mitchell to another team, sure, you could trade him straight up, but you're going to lose a lot of draft picks if you're the other team or a couple of players. Don't do that. Get another team involved. So that would be 3 teams involved for Donovan Mitchell, whether the Jazz want to trade him. It just makes sense to match up salary. I know the Jazz have done a lot this offseason. I wouldn't be surprised to see Donovan Mitchell stays. It just doesn't make sense to trade Donovan Mitchell. He has his chance to lead this team, the Utah Jazz, as a superstar. Why not keep him and see what happens? I think ultimately that's what's going to happen. For the Jazz, though, it doesn't hurt to see what the trade market and trade value is for Donovan Mitchell. Take those calls or even make those calls. But in the end, I think Donovan Mitchell stays with the Utah Jazz. We're going to end with the Denver Broncos. Training camp opens up Tuesday, and there's 2 position battles I want you to keep an eye on. That is the tight end and running back. For the tight end position, last year's starter, Noah Fant, was traded to Seattle. He was part of the trade that sent quarterback Russell Wilson to Denver. I like Noah Fant as a pass-catching tight end, but that's all he could do. He couldn't block well. In his 3 years in Denver, Fant caught 170 passes for 1,905 yards and 10 touchdowns. His average yards per catch, and it's pretty good, was 11.2 yards. Great offensive numbers, but the Broncos need a guy who can block at the tight end position. Fant simply couldn't. He tried to, but it felt like anytime Fant tried to block on a passing or running play, his guy beat him and actually tackled either the quarterback, which would be a sack, or the running back for not a large gain, I should say. So now that Fant is gone, Albert O and Greg Dulcich will battle it out for the starting tight end position. So that is Albert O and Greg Dulcich are going to battle it out for the starting tight end position. I have to say the edge right now goes to Albert O. The reason is simple. He has been with the Broncos for the past 2 years. His numbers don't jump out with 44 receptions for 451 yards and 3 touchdowns. His average yards per catch is 10.3. The difference between Noah Fant and Albert O is Albert O can block. He showed he was a better pass and run blocker than Noah Fant. Albert O can block his man, so he won't tackle the running back or sack the quarterback. By doing this, it should give quarterback Russell Wilson more time to throw the football. With Greg Dulcich, the Broncos drafted him in the 3rd round in this year's NFL draft. He played his college football at UCLA. He was actually productive there, catching 77 passes throughout his college career for 1,353 yards and 11 touchdowns. So with his offensive production, I can see why the Broncos drafted him. They wanted another playmaker at the tight end position. This is a guy that is Greg Dulcich, who will catch the football. Denver needed someone other than Albert O to catch the football at the tight end position. The thing is, and the difference is between Albert O and Greg Dulcich, is Greg Dulcich will need to learn how to block at the NFL level. Training camp and preseason games will give him that practice. Denver most likely will use 2 tight ends for some formations. That means Greg Dulcich and Albert O will be on the field at the same time. There are times where they will use 1 tight end in the formation, and that is to run block or pass block. Right now, that will be Albert O. He has the edge right now. Of course, that could all change during preseason and training camp. So preseason games and training camp will decide who will be the number 1 tight end on the depth chart. For right now, the depth chart without going to training camp, even though that it opens up on Tuesday, has to be Albert O as the first tight end and Greg Dulcich as number 2. Another position to keep an eye on during Broncos training camp and preseason games is running back. It's the same running backs as last year, Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon started, and Williams was the number 2 running back on the depth chart. In this day and age in the NFL, teams don't have one running back, but it's running back by committee. So last season, as a rookie for Javonte Williams, he rushed for 903 yards and 4 touchdowns. His average yards per rush was 4.4 yards. In the passing game, Williams had 43 catches for 316 yards and 3 touchdowns. The best part about Williams' game is he protected the football, losing basically had 2 fumbles but lost 1. Gordon is a veteran who totaled 918 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. So he totaled 918 rushing yards and 8 touchdowns. His average yards per rush was 4.5 yards. Gordon was also used in the passing game, catching 28 passes for 213 yards and 2 touchdowns. Look at their rushing yards. One would think it was a great 1-2 punch. You had two running backs who almost had 1,000 yards rushing, and that's what you want. You want runners to surpass the 1,000-yard mark and almost 5 yards per carry. Sounds great, right? Well, the problem with Gordon, and it's been a problem with him throughout his NFL career, is the fact that he couldn't hold on to the football. Defenders, especially last year, easily knocked the football out of his hands for fumbles. It's been a problem for him since he's been in the Mile High City since 2020. So the Broncos have had Melvin Gordon in the Mile High City in a Denver Broncos uniform since 2020. Let's look at his fumbles. He has lost 7 fumbles, far too many. Those end drives for the offense, and we saw it a little bit last year. You can't have those fumbles. Once the regular season finished and the Broncos went 7-10, it looked like Gordon was the odd man out. His contract was up, and he was a free agent. Gordon was looking for a new home. Unfortunately, nobody wanted him. I don't know why, because he is productive, but it might have been the fact that he fumbled and the fact that teams drafted running backs and found running backs in free agency. So unfortunately, he couldn't find a home, and the Broncos decided to bring him back on a 1-year, $5 million contract. Another contract year for him. So the question is, who should start for the Denver Broncos at the running back position? Last year, it was Melvin Gordon. It made sense since he was a veteran. Not so fast this year. Last year, Williams showed that he might be the better runner than Gordon and actually the future of the Denver Broncos at the running back position. Williams was a tougher back to take down. He wouldn't go down on first contact. It took a few players to take him down. So that's the difference. Is the fact of the matter is he was built differently, and on first contact, he wouldn't go down. It would take 2 or 3 defenders. Now, for Gordon, he was tackled pretty easily by 1 defender. Of course, besides the running style, the difference between the two, and I've mentioned this before, is the fact, and I've highlighted it in this show is the fact that Williams can hold on to the football. Looking at the start of training camp, Denver will give Williams the chance to start. He should have the first team reps in practice and preseason games. At any point, if Williams starts to fumble or struggles as the number one running back, Gordon will have his chance. The thing about both of these running backs is they must be able to run the football, which will open up the passing game for Russell Wilson. Running the football will also control the clock. Both of these running backs in passing plays must block a free rusher who's trying to sack Russell Wilson. That will give Russell Wilson more time to find Courtland Sutton, Tim Patrick, Jerry Jeudy, Albert O, and Greg Dulcich, and a receiver should be wide open. Now, with the running back competition, it should make both Williams and Melvin Gordon better. Both want to play well. I have to say the edge is to Williams right now. Denver is going to give him every opportunity to win the job. Williams has to take it. No matter what, though, it should be like it was last year. What I mean by that is both Williams and Melvin Gordon should see the field. So basically, like I said, it's a running back by committee. Well, you have your committee of Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. I still think as of right now, if you had asked me who's going to get the bulk of the carries, it has to be Javonte Williams, just because he doesn't fumble. And that is key for the Denver Broncos, is you don't want a fumbling running back. And the fact that he's a tougher runner. Throughout preseason and training camp, so preseason games and training camp, the tight end and the running back battles are the ones to watch for. So if you go to training camp or even read about training camp, they will highlight, hopefully they'll highlight the tight end and the running back position battles. I mean, there's so many to figure out, but those are the two that I think they will highlight, just because you need a starting tight end between Greg Dulcich and Alberto, as well as the running back position between Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon. As soon as training camp and preseason games get underway, I will actually update you on who I think is leading those two battles between the tight end and running back. Again, the Denver Broncos start training camp on Tuesday. They hope it's the start of an exciting season. Now, as you recall, Denver went 7-10 last year and missed the playoffs. They haven't made the playoffs since 2015. Of course, that was Peyton Manning's last year, where they won Super Bowl 50. They want to end that drought. That's what you want, and I think Russell Wilson will do that, as he is their franchise quarterback that they haven't had since Peyton Manning. So it's possible that the Broncos will end their drought. At least that's what my expectations is that the goal is to end that playoff drought. And I think with Russell Wilson, they will do so. I'm Jordan Long. This has been Under Review. Read my blog that I write Mondays through Thursdays with podcasts on Fridays at sports-scoop.com. Check out all the shows we have on the Sideline Sports Network and subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of them, because we have shows every single day. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of our great shows. This has been a Sideline Sports production.